The mountain shook, and I woke up screaming inside a pod that was cracking apart around me. Smoke filled the air. Metal groaned. Outside, something huge was breathing, and every breath sounded like a storm. I was only a baby then, too small to understand what had happened. My ship had broken apart above a world called Kalevar, and my escape pod had fallen through the sky like a burning star. When it finally stopped moving, the door split open, and cold air rushed in. Then a shadow covered the sky. A creature the size of a hill leaned down toward me. Her eyes were bright gold, and her body shimmered with deep red scales that glowed faintly, like coals that never fully cooled. She could have ended my life in a single breath. Instead, she paused. I was told later that I would not stop crying, and that my cries were different from anything she had heard before. Sharp, fearless, loud enough to reach the stars. She said she wanted to know what I was calling out to. Her name was HFY, and the other dragons called her the Queen of the Nest. She lifted me gently in claws that could crush stone, and she carried me into her home on the mountain, where her own 4 babies waited. That day she made a choice that confused everyone around her. She decided to raise me as her own. I grew up surrounded by scales, wings, and fire. My brothers and sisters were dragons, and I was the only one without claws, without wings, without the ability to breathe flame. My name became Rowan because HFY said a small creature needed a small and simple name, something easy to call across a long distance when danger came close. The years that followed were strange and wonderful. I learned to climb before I learned to walk properly. I learned to listen to the deep, rumbling sounds dragons used to speak with each other, sounds that shook my chest before I understood their meaning. My sister Vantha could glow like fire before she could stand steady on her own legs. My brother Torin could glide across the valley by the time he was only a few months old. I could do none of these things. I fell more than I flew. I stumbled more than I climbed. But there was one thing I could do that none of them could. I never stopped moving forward. Dragons burn bright, and then they rest. It is in their nature, built into every part of them. A great burst of energy, and then long, peaceful sleep. I did not have their fire, but I had something else, something quiet and stubborn that lived inside me instead. I could keep walking long after my legs ached. I could keep trying, long after giving up would have made more sense. My sister Lyra was the one who noticed it first. She was close to my age, always beside me during our morning runs across the high fields near the nesting caves. "You never slow down," she said to me once, "even when you probably should." "Neither do you," I told her, and she smiled, thinking I was only trying to please her. I was not. I meant it as something closer to a warning, though neither of us understood that yet. The warning became important on the day the sky above our valley turned dark with wings that did not belong to us. A rival group of dragons had been circling the mountains for many days, testing the edges of HFY's territory. Everyone in the nest had grown used to distant roars and shadows passing far above, but that morning was different. The shadows came closer and closer until they filled the whole sky above our home. I was 14 years old enough to help watch the mountain paths, but everyone believed I was still too small to matter if real trouble began. I believed it too, until the moment my brother Torin was pulled from the sky. He had been guarding the eastern ridge when 3 of the rival dragons surrounded him at once. He fell hard against the stone, his wing bent beneath him, unable to lift himself back into the air. The rival dragons circled above him, cutting off every path he might use to escape. I was the only one small enough to slip beneath their wings and reach him. I do not remember deciding to run toward the danger instead of away from it. I only remember moving, faster than I had ever moved before, ducking beneath wings the size of houses, sliding across loose stone, until I reached my brother's side. I helped him rise, pulling with everything my small human arms could manage, even as the rival dragons roared above us, trying to force us both back down. I did not stop, even when my legs burned and my breath ran out. I kept pulling, kept moving, kept guiding Torin toward the safety of the caves, one careful step at a time, until the rival dragons finally gave up their chase and turned back toward their own mountains. When we reached the caves, Ashaeli was already waiting. She wrapped her enormous body around both of us, the same way she had wrapped around me on the very first night we met. I sat there shaking, exhausted, my human heart pounding faster than I thought possible, while she spoke quietly to my sister Vantha nearby. "This is why I kept him," she said, "not despite what he lacks, because of what he refuses to stop doing." I heard those words, though I was not supposed to. I did not fully understand them then. I understood them many years later, standing on a quiet ridge overlooking the broken remains of my very first ship, the one that had carried me to this world before I could even remember my own name. By then, I was grown. My brothers and sisters stood beside me, taller than mountains, their wings casting long shadows across the valley below. Vantha had become a leader in her own right, wise and steady, carrying forward everything our mother had taught her. Lyra still ran beside me during quiet mornings, though now we ran across much wider fields. Torin, who I had once pulled from danger with nothing but stubborn will, had grown into one of the strongest flyers in the entire nest. And me, I was still the same small, scaleless creature I had always been. No fire, no wings, no claws sharp enough to matter against creatures built for the sky. But I had learned, through every fall and every difficult climb, through every long night spent listening to lullabies too deep for human ears, that strength did not always look the same for every creature. Dragons ruled the sky with fire, and wings passed down through countless generations before them. Humans, it seemed, carried something different, something smaller, but somehow just as powerful. We simply do not stop. And Ashaeli understood that truth long before I did. She saw it that very first night, in the cries of a small, frightened creature who refused to be silent, even surrounded by giants who could have ended everything with a single breath. She chose to listen instead of turning away, and that choice changed both of our lives forever. Now, whenever new travelers arrive at the mountain, lost or frightened after crossing the stars, I am the one who greets them first. I tell them my story, the story of a human boy raised among dragons, taught patience by wings larger than mountains, taught courage by a queen who saw something worth protecting in a stranger's cries. I tell them that the sky does not belong only to those with wings. Sometimes, it belongs to those who simply refuse to fall. And every single morning, when the sun rises over the mountain that has always been my home, I still run across those same wide fields beside my sister Lyra, neither of us slowing down, neither of us willing to stop, exactly the way our mother always knew we wouldn't. Because that is what she taught us, dragon and human alike, gathered together beneath one great and patient sky. Never stop moving forward, no matter how far the road ahead may stretch. That lesson, more than any fire or any wing, is the reason I am still here today, standing tall beside the family who chose me, on a mountain that will always be my home.